This is Joy 99.7 FM. We're also on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, myjoyonline.com and 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. Tonight, 6 more persons arrested by police in Kumasi during the rerun of the Council of State elections in the Ashanti region by the Electoral Commission after last week's chaotic scenes. We're live in the region tonight as former NDC Regional Chairman Yao Bimpe is declared winner.
His Excellency has gotten somebody who can advise him. He's going to work so that Ashanti region has its fair share.
Stay with me. I'll take you live to the Ashanti region for the very latest on that re-election of the Council of State. And that was actually rerun today after last week's chaotic scenes. Also, over 1,000 suggestions already submitted to the National Education Reform Committee as they begin the much anticipated review of the sector tomorrow in the Volta regional capital.
We have about 1,200 submissions that we are going to analyze, a number of them, and we are expecting that tomorrow at the launch, we're expecting we will get about 300 people at the launch.
I have all the updates when it comes to that education sector review. Also, be fair to us, that's the crowd of pupils and teachers in the northern region as they beg government to fix their collapsing schools.
Every now and then, teachers and pupils are chased out of the class by snakes.
The whole school from KG1 to P6, we are only 2 teachers.
You see, this alone discourages most children. Are the children not Ghanaian children?
Be fair to us.
That's coming up in our latest series, Crumbling Start. Also tonight, JoyNews checks reveal inconsistencies in reports regarding the allocation of 70% of the cocoa market value as farmgate prices for cocoa farmers. There's more as Cocoa demands claims saying it's false and misleading. We have a very latest from the Agric Minister as he makes a U-turn from his earlier position.
5.3 billion. Fako tuyaka na yaba to hose tuya. Na meka jo say where am I say a trap. Say a person to cocoa milk you afford kase say the percra. Because of this, how can we do it?
And in business, President John Mahama moves to rationalize Ghana's structure to help deal with issues of compliance.
And as well as please arrest the general manager of Elimina Sharks, Kelvin Abuaji, in connection with the attack on match officials during the Access Bank Division 1 League game against All Blacks.
Details of that and more. Plus, we hear from Kenyan President William Ruto expressing regret over the failure by African leaders to vote in favor of the country's candidate Raila Odinga to serve as the next chairperson for the African Union.
I am disappointed that Raila Amolo Odinga did not win. And I have a regret for Africa that they missed an opportunity to be served by the finest.
But why are Kenyans taking a swipe at Ghana's President Mahama over an alleged promise to vote for Raila Odinga? You want to stay for that and more. Also, President John Mahama returns to Ghana with an assurance that his administration is actively tackling inflation and addressing other critical economic challenges. That and more in tonight's edition of News. Now, you want to join us with your thoughts, your comments is via WhatsApp is 055-1111-997. You're on all our social media platforms. You're live with us. You can leave a message with the hashtag Newsnight. I am Emefa Apau. Many thanks for your company. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Let's dig in now and get updates on that rerun of the Council of State elections in the Ashanti region. We know about the Northeast rerun, and of course without the chaos and the drama as we've witnessed in the Ashanti region. Tonight, 6 more persons have been arrested in Kumasi alone as the Electoral Commission reruns the Council of State elections. Well, the rerun follows last week's violent disruption where thugs stormed the election venue, attacking officials and destroying materials, including thumb-printed ballot papers. Well, the police heavily criticized for their security lapses in the previous election. Today, we are told ramped up security for the polls. Multiple barricades were set up with strict orders to prevent unauthorized access. Well, my colleague Nanaya Ojima will give us all the updates on that. However, trouble still found its way in. Despite the heightened measures, security forces were forced to intervene, leading to at least 7 arrests so far. Let me take you to the Ashanti region now. I think we want to hear from the horse's own mouth. Nanaya Ojima has been monitoring this from last week up until now. Joins us on the line. Nanaya, so in the morning, you told us that 1 person had been arrested for entering the inner perimeter. We now know that 6 more persons have been arrested. What exactly did they do?
So according to my sources, these people breached security protocols that had been adopted by the police to ensure that this election was peaceful and successful. Now, some of them had gone beyond designated areas for supporters, and others were found to be causing some troubles within among the supporters. And these are, among others, are the reasons why police had to pick these people out.
Interesting, but we also understand that where there were 11 aspirants at the start, we understand some also pulled out. What exactly happened?
So this one in the Electoral Commission received a letter from one of the aspirants notifying them that the aspirant had withdrawn himself from the election. Earlier, there were other press releases and other aspirants on the media platforms claiming that they have withdrawn from the election, but not all of them could send notification to the Electoral Commission. So according to the Electoral Commission, all these people remained in the race, but none of those people who had sent press releases out could make it to the venue. About 3 people were not cited at the venue. So to them, they had withdrawn themselves from the race, but the Electoral Commission received only 1 notification of withdrawal.
Thankfully, we are told that all is set and done. Polls have ended, sorting done, counting done, declaration has been done. We are told Yao Bimpe has been declared winner.
Exactly. Former chairman of the NDC, Yao Bimpe, has been declared winner of the election. He was able to make 49 votes. He was closely followed by Nana Nkansa Boadu with 35 votes. And finally, one Anesi was able to poll 1 vote. The rest of the aspirants in the election had no votes. Out of the 86 assembly members or delegates who were supposed to cast their ballots in this election, 85 of them showed up to participate in the electoral process.
And what's been reactions so far?
So after the election, some NDC supporters were outside the premises waiting for the winner of the election, and they all joined him and sang through some streets of Kumasi to the party office. They are excited about the victory that have been chalked by the former chairman of the NDC in Ashanti region.
His Excellency has gotten somebody who can advise him. In the name of Yao Bimpe, he has helped the party a lot. He deserves to be the Council of State for Ashanti region. I'll give thanks to all the members who voted for him. We know that we have a long way to go. Ashanti region must be united once again.
Mahama. Thank you.
He's going to work so that Ashanti region has its fair share. We thank His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, everybody. I've lost of work.
What does it mean for the NDC?
We are moving forward.
Well, Nanayo, I'm told there was some concerns also raised by some aspirants about some assemblymen that were seen alighting from a bus. We'll talk about it shortly and briefly, but we're told that the 1 person nearly held the entire election to ransom. They were waiting for him to cast his ballot. What exactly happened?
So 1 assembly member from the Dancy area refused to show up for the election. The reason for he absenting himself is yet to be known. But from the sources, we gather that some people who had access to who had his number tried calling him on phone, but unfortunately, all attempts to reach this person was not successful.
Okay, and you were telling me also, I think we should talk about those assemblymen also that were seen alighting from a bus. Some of the aspirants raised concerns about it. What exactly happened?
So, MFA, as at midday, less than 30 of the delegates had showed up to cast their ballots. We were waiting for the rest of the of the electoral college. The information that had been received is that these people were camped somewhere, and very soon they will come to cast their ballots. Somewhere after midday, we saw all of them coming in a bus, about 40 assembly members, and they were led by the NDC chairman of the Ashanti region, Nana Kwesi, and also the organizer of the NDC in the Ashanti region, Isham Al-Hassan, who was also among the people who walked these people into the election grounds. According to Nana Ekweoko, who is an aspirant of in this election, he believes that this is not appropriate and shouldn't have been allowed, because camping of some of these electorates or some of the members of the electoral college is something that he believes that is not legal and shouldn't be done.
Council of State election was supposed to be non-partisan, so even if you are exposed politically, this is not a place to exhibit that form of exposition. We all know some of the candidates are either NPP or NDC, and it's not a hidden secret. But this is not the time to exhibit that, because, like I said, it's supposed to be non-partisan. So, passing people around, and we even hear that some will even come to and all those things. But I don't think it's a work well for the Council of State election. Before we realize it will become so much partisan that we cannot do anything about it.
Well, so that's the situation in the Ashanti region, rerun of the elections there after those chaotic scenes. Of course, 7 persons ended up being arrested today as well. In the northeast region, after that tiebreaker now, Saka Abuba has also been elected as the regional member of the Council of State. And we earlier heard from the Minister for Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Ahmed Ibrahim, just days ago. He told JoyNews, he actually spoke on PM Express, that President Mahama will complete the constitution of the Council of State this week, all things being equal.
Right. Once we have gotten the 14 out of 16, the remaining 2 will not be a problem. The president can go ahead and do his appointment. The Council of State can be properly constituted without the 2 vacancies. As the Council of State, the president does his appointment, they are sworn in. Once they are sworn in, they can start proceedings. Then in due course, the 2 vacancies will be filled. Why were we in a hurry to organize the elections on the 11th of February when we knew we had not even done with the government appointees? Yeah. This was the president who gave his promise that he had certain things to be done within 120 days. And he was to form his cabinet within 2 weeks after serving, which all these things he has complied. So this should not be an obstruction to the president forming his government, and therefore it will be done. As I speak to you, I know the president is already having his list to his chest, and once the people of Ghana have spoken,
so roughly by the end of this month we should be done.
That would be too far.
Oh, even before the end of
even by I will not be surprised to say that by next week the president will go. Don't we have a former chief of justice?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Don't we have the former IGP? Don't we have former chief of defense staff? Don't we have former inspector general of police? We have those people. How many are they? They are not many.
That's the Minister of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. They're speaking to Blessed Soga on PM Express. On PM Express is at 9 p.m. I was going to say Business Edition with George Yafi. Well, it's on every 9 p.m. on the JoyNews channel. Some of your comments that you whatever it is you've heard so far, you can send in your comments to 055-1111-997. Let's turn our attention to cocoa-related matters now. And of course, the Minister for Food and Agriculture and Cocoa Board seems to be clashing on the issue about the percentages that in terms of the world market price that should be received by cocoa farmers. Well, he's shut down claims. That's the Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku. He shut down claims that Ghanaian cocoa farmers will now receive 70% of the world market price following his initial Facebook post, which sought to suggest so. Well, speaking on Ekosi saying on Asempa FM earlier, Mr. Eric Opoku says government will increase the cocoa price for farmers after a careful evaluation of how to offset the over 3 billion cedi debt left behind by the previous government in the cocoa sector. Well, you recall that he made a comment on the floor of Parliament with a different view on the said topic. Ghana's cocoa regulator, Cocoa Board, also came out and debunked claims on the cocoa farm gates price change, describing it as misleading and urging stakeholders and the general public to disregard the misinformation and rely solely on official communication channels for accurate updates on cocoa pricing. Well, he's been making a U-turn on Ekosiseng. Listen.
5.37%. The Mose a due for payment this year. And what it means is say this year no sakana mo ka kire no we am hand over those kakao. Afia chief executive na call office no hwe nkratem no. The obehunu no may even be different from this. Because where the Omar report to actually now a new chief executive has gone into office. Ono hwe nkratem nyina awia. Odnama ne yeba babo oman no. Ebi kura na the Omar report to kire na ye ketwa. And it's a 5.37 billion in 1 year like this.
$1 billion or cedis?
Ghana cedis.
Ghana cedis, okay.
This year like this. That's the chance. Say, unya kokos can this year. Timu 5.3 billion. Fako tuyaka na yaba to hose tuya. Na meka just say, where am I say a trap? Say a person to kokon milk you afford kasi yasa di epere because of this. How can we do it? What's the theory?
Yes.
NDC fra kunyaso.
Yes.
Na a car na wo cocoa now was 1 billion.
1 billion Ghana cedis.
And
as you are more
27 billion. Now 27 billion so no one pone kana san kenya issue. Enya no kwa ne kano. In their handing over notes, brief from the brand copy ne kutam hey. The brand transition team no.
Yes.
Si cocoa. Kwa jis kaso beton last 2 years no. Ntimi an to cocoa ni nyina nkotua ka no. Nti ya demrofo no ka cocoa 374,000 tons.
That's in beans.
So that's the Food and Agriculture Minister, Eric Opoku, there speaking on Ekosiseng on Asempa FM a while ago. So in essence, he's saying that his earlier posts on Facebook was taken out of context and that there will be an increase in cocoa price for farmers only after a careful evaluation of how to offset the over 3 billion cedi debt left behind by the previous government in the cocoa sector. The full interview is available on our social media platforms. We'll stay a while longer on cocoa matters, also this time on the economy largely. And President John Dramani Mahama has reasserted government's commitment to stabilizing Ghana's economy as a foundation for sustainable progress. While speaking at the Africa Business Forum 2025 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, he said his government is focused on stabilizing the city, tackling inflation, and addressing other critical economic issues.
In a crisis, the first thing you do is to focus on stabilizing, and so that's what we're focused on. Bringing interest rates down, bringing inflation down, stabilizing the currency, dealing with the debt overhang, and that's where our focus is for now. But at the same time, to analyze the factors that got Ghana into this place in the first place, and put in the steps that ensure that we don't end up here again. And so that would entail looking at the Fiscal Responsibility Act and strengthening it, looking at the Public Financial Management Act and strengthening it, so that tomorrow we don't have a situation where a minister, goes onto the Eurobond market and borrows 11.5 billion over 5 years and puts most of it into consumption. Those are some of the things we need to look at. We need to look at our debt management department and strengthen it so that it's able to provide information to the public on what our debt trajectory is and keep it below a certain ceiling. We need to introduce an independent value for money office so that we're making sure that our projects are coming in at the right value and at the right cost. We need to make sure that we cut out waste, reduce corruption. Those are all things that have to be dealt with.
Well, President Mahama also stressed the urgent need for African countries to add value to their raw materials, stating that such efforts would also create employment opportunities.
The same with cocoa. We've exported cocoa beans for God knows how many years, and still we export cocoa beans. There's some processing capacity, it's about 30%. We have the capacity to process almost 500,000 tons of cocoa, but we're not processing that much. We're processing at about 200,000 tons because the cocoa board that needs to be restructured believes that it gets immediate foreign exchange when the beans are traded, and we sell forward, and so they get the money in advance before we even export one bean. But bringing the value addition home will be bringing jobs back so that our young people can get jobs to do, especially putting that processing in the areas where the cocoa is grown. And that's why we're excited about the initiative between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, because together we produce about 80% of the world's cocoa. And so if we coordinate and work together, not only in terms of improving production, but also in terms of processing and bringing processing up to that chocolate, that last chocolate home, we'll create more jobs for our young people, because we all recognize that with a growing youth population, yes, it's an advantage for Africa, but if we're not creating opportunities for these young people, then it becomes a ticking time bomb. And so we need to look at all those areas.
That's President John Dramani Mahama. He's also been speaking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We'll talk about it shortly, but let's focus a bit more on his emphasis on stabilizing the city. Let's bring in Professor Godfred Bokping. He's an economist and professor of finance, University of Ghana Business School. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. In light of President Mahama's emphasis on stabilizing the city, do you get the sense that we are walking the talk in that regard?
I think to a large extent, we are still on the path of talking the talk, building on what we have heard in the last couple of decades and all of that. I think my considered view is that the president's second coming, we will now walk the talk. Because that's the only chance he has. And I want to believe that... and again, following from the NDC's manifesto, I want to believe that they will begin to roll out all these interventions, especially as they put their first major budget, the 2025 budget, and make that public to the people of Ghana, to the parliament. When it is approved, then it's work done. So largely, in terms of the talking the talk, it's largely consistent, and I think that the president has the right diagnosis of what the issues are. And of course, as a country and as a continent, we have not done badly in diagnosing what the issues are. The issue has been the implementation and then the consistency of that implementation. There was something the president said that moved me. The Independent Value for Money Office or committee also. I think that will be very, very critical. But it's not just about setting that up and packing that with party followers and all of that. I think we must be intentional about resourcing that committee or that office with the right people, with the right objectivity, so that they can do the right analysis in terms of the value for money, because that is where a lot of the waste will come from. If you look at our capex, budgetary allocation to capital expenditure in the last couple of years, and what we get out of that, it leaves much to be desired. And again, you can even link that to procurement. Come to think about it, that between 2012 and 2022, nearly 85% of all government big-ticket procurement did not go through competitive tendering. And a good number of that also did not come along with explanations why competitive tendering had to be sidestepped. Right. So, and then again, if you look at project overrun, cost overrun, sometimes 100%, 200% of the original budget and all of that. I mean, clearly, if you continue on that path, you will be unique to expect a different outcome than what we have now. And in fact, MFA is the reason why, if you look at our expenditure to GDP ratio, and you compare that to Malaysia, Singapore, and the rest of them, you can see that we compare favorably to these countries. So we have spent, relative to the size of our economy, like these countries, but they picked growth, they picked development, and we picked inflation, we picked depreciation of the currency, we picked distraction. Why? It's because of the efficiency of that spending. So the role that infrastructure plays in economic growth and development is not just in the spending, but it's in the efficiency of that spending. It's in the higher value for money that you are able to elicit from every cedi or dollar that you spend. Because remember, you don't have the money. So the little money that you have, you want to make sure that you spend them in a way that you derive the greatest value possible from that. We haven't done that in the last couple of years. I heard the president talking about strengthening the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Yes. And then also talking about debt limit rules. Yes, that is good. But remember, Nigeria also has debt limit rule. They actually set it as low as 40% of GDP. But in the run-up to the 2023 crisis and all of that, when they were learning from Ghana, Nigeria was spending practically every CD revenue or dollar revenue they generate on debt servicing because they employed all kinds of back office arrangement with the central bank and ended up loading their debt stock as a way of bypassing the debt limit rule of 40% that was in their act. So there's one thing setting that act, then another thing developing the accounting arrangement around that to make sure that we comply with that. Let me give you an example.
Briefly on that.
The Fiscal Responsibility Act, we had a fiscal deficit of 5% of GDP from 2018. But in order not to comply with that, we were reporting our fiscal deficit on parallel level. One deficit with the financial sector cleanup costs and the energy sector indebtedness, and one without. And we chose the one without so that we'll be able to comply with the 5% of GDP a rule in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So by excluding the financial sector cleanup costs and the energy sector indebtedness costs, we're able to comply with the Act. But at the end of the day, the accounting treatment does not take away the effect of the overspending, which is just a matter of time and it will show up.
Okay. Professor Godfred Bopping, we are grateful for your time. He's an economist and professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, and still will stay a while longer at the AU Commission. And there's a lot of talk and controversy that has been generated following that particular election of the AU chairperson. And Kenyan President William Ruto has expressed regret that African leaders failed to vote in favor of Kenya's Raila Odinga to serve as the next chairperson of the African Union. So Mr. Odinga lost to Djibouti's long-serving foreign minister, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. He was pronounced the incoming chairperson at the 38th Africa Union Heads of State and Government Summit in Ethiopia. By now, you've seen or heard about the number of comments that Kenyans are making and naming Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. And you know that Kenyan president has also named him as being one of the African leaders who endorsed Ruto's candidature after they met. However, after the sad turn of events, the Kenyan president expressed displeasure that Africa did not choose Raila Odinga. Listen to him.
As you know, this setup was a setup for celebration. You can all see. But I would not be telling the truth if I didn't say I am disappointed. I am. But I am disappointed because of two things. Number one, I am disappointed that Raila Amolo Odinga did not win because he was the best candidate. And I have a regret for Africa that they missed an opportunity to be served by the finest. Having said that, I have three things that I'm proud of. Number one, Baba made me very proud. He was the best candidate that we could put forward. He was available. Whenever I booked an appointment, he was there. Whenever he had to travel, he was there. Whenever it was early morning or late evening, he was present. And he was there all the way.
Obviously unhappy, Kenya's President Ruto there on his disappointment that African leaders did not vote for Raila Odinga. Well, let's bring in the head of our foreign affairs desk, Blessed Suga, because there's a lot of controversy brewing around this particular election. First, though, why was this year's election much more competitive?
A lot of competition because the forerunners were all coming from the Eastern Bloc. So the likes of Ali Yusuf from Djibouti and Raila Odinga, who's a known political figure, not just in the East but across Africa. These two names were in the lead for the elections, and that's why it was very, very competitive.
And there's a lot of talk about Ruto hopeful that Ghana was actually going to cast the ballot in favor
if you take a look at the trajectory, it started with Ruto leaning over to then President Akufo-Addo, and after elections, obviously there was a new head of state, and per the constitution, that decision will solely lie with our new president, John Dramani Mahama. So the very first foreign trip, if you recall, by John Mahama was to Kenya, and that was even done twice because before his swearing in, John Mahama was in Kenya, obviously because of his ties with the likes of the former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, who then shared a joint government with the same figure we're talking about, Raila Odinga. So clearly, because of that, the expectation was, there is some sort of goodwill, and so having been there twice, John Mahama would lean the way of the Eastern Bloc. But here lies the case: you have two candidates coming in from the eastern side as well. So quite a a very tough race then for Raila Odinga and Lee Yusuf. Of course, the gentleman from Casablanca was a bit lost in the race because of these two figures.
Well, we'll talk about all the Kenyans and the concerns they're raising on social media, but Ghana also took the spotlight at a pre-summit session with the election of some citizens as AU officials. Tell us.
Precisely. And we were fortunate because prior to the election of the AU chairperson, there were a series of elections just to appoint some other officials of the African Union Commission. Ama Chumwa, our former ambassador to Ethiopia, has now successfully been selected as the AU commissioner. Will be dealing with issues of migration and all of that, and social issues at the AU Commission. There's Jane Gasu, Ambassador Jane Gasu, who will now be serving on the AU issues of international law, the commission that was formed for it. And guess what? Adam Senano, who I was just speaking to a couple of minutes ago, has been retained to serve on the African Union board against anti-corruption. So big win for us, and also a plus going out to Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who's attending his very first summit as foreign minister, and then having witnessed all of these three individuals being elected as AU officials. We've also secured the second vice position in terms of the heads of states and governments. The arrangement now will go to Lorenzo of Angola, I believe, and of course there are two other executive positions. We're taking the second vice position now as the Republic of Ghana. So it's like a big win for us, 4 in the pack for us, and then our good friends in Kenya. Maybe better luck next time. That's all we can say.
They've been talking on social media. They are obviously unhappy. Blessed, thank you so much for joining us as the head of our Foreign Affairs Desk, giving us all the rundown. Michael Ashale joins me in studio briefly with what Kenyans have been saying on social media. What exactly is our crime?
Well, Emefa, first of all, they want the list of all presidents who promised and didn't vote for Kenya to be made public. We need to know our enemies. And this is coming from Lord Abraham Mutai. And this one says that at top of the list of suspects they know they didn't vote for their president. They mentioned Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC. Then there's a number 6 with a question mark. Then somebody comes to say Ghana. Or somebody says know your enemies. Then what? More than anything else, it's important to look inwards at self first before senselessly running about seeking where they to heap the blame. But anyway, there seems to be some food I was eating somewhere. There's this one
coming up everywhere.
This one says Ghana's John Mahama even visited President Ruto's private home, with President reciprocating by attending Mahama swearing in. Is our neighbor, but felt more close to Djibouti, DRC. But that was supposed to be the comment I had. I found the one with the food. He says President John Mahama of Ghana even came to Ruto's Kilgore's home and ate roasted goat, but later failed to vote for Raila Odinga. This is crazy. This last one, also on food. John Mahama, you came to our country and lots of pleasantries were displayed, showing John and Ruto are good friends. President John reciprocated by making Kenya his first foreign trip as elected Ghana president. President Ruto hosted him at his rural side home, where they enjoyed, well, I'm sure this will possibly be the pork, Mbuzi Choma, kuku fry. Raila Odinga brought in fresh imbuta. I'm guessing they are going to a list of things, but clearly they were expecting that all of this would have swayed the opinion of President John Mahama to vote for him. They are alleging that possibly one of the people who didn't vote for him.
Well, that's the expectation on the part of John Mahama, but just a bit of clarity for the purposes of education. Even if John Mahama as an individual voting on behalf of the Republic had gone in the way of Raila Odinga, there would still have been a challenge, because during the election the indication we're getting was that SADC, which is the southern parts of Africa, had decided to vote en bloc, which means that whatever decision one was taking, it would affect all. And they had 16 countries in that bloc. West Africa was quite divided because of the coup d'etat, 3 obviously out of our pack, so we don't have the numbers, and we're still falling short by 1 if we had all the packs from West Africa going in for Raila. East will be divided obviously because you have the gentleman from Djibouti who's now won, and Raila Odinga himself was also from Kenya, so it will create a lot of division in there, and you'll not have the whole pack going in. For
so we didn't betray
Raila
the cause
Odinga.
after all.
Even if we didn't, I don't know. The president is back. We should be asking the president what he did.
Leave us alone. Blessed, thank you so much, and thankfully, President Mahama has been welcomed back this afternoon by Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman following that working visit to Germany, where he participated in that Munich Security Conference, and then to Ethiopia, where there's a lot of controversy. And George Riafe, the birthday boy, is in the studios with the latest from the world of business. I'm sure all the alumni, everybody here, past and present, the party happened. Big time party today. George has
it happened already?
The party,
of course.
Didn't you bring the lunch? You said you bring dinner too, so
maybe it's happened already because those in the house and other
the people you have disappointed today
because it fell on a Sunday.
But you always bring it on a let's do business.
That,
when we finish, we'll talk about it.
Okay. Well, coming up in business, President John Mahama moves to rationalize Ghana's tax structure to help deal with issues of compliance as government grapples with low revenue levels and push to actually remove some taxes. A Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, hence 2025 budget, will come up with initiatives targeted at supporting entrepreneurs. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials. Since thanks and Pepsodent Herbal and charcoal. You welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, President John Mahama has revealed that the government has started work that would help rationalize the country's tax structure. This move is part of efforts to deal with compliance issues and revenue mobilization challenges. But speaking to Bloomberg News in Munich, Germany, the president noted that they should help deal with issues of compliance.
Was drawn up, and so coming into government, there are a few issues that we thought we should raise with the IMF, including the issue of tax rationalization, because of the target of achieving 24% revenue to GDP by 2028. Program required that revenue should continue increasing at a certain rate. Unfortunately, what the previous government had done was just to slap on more taxes, and we had gotten to a stage where the more taxes that were put on, the less revenue that came in. And so it's necessary for us to look at the whole tax handle, rationalize them, make them more transparent, easy to understand, so that we can have better compliance. We've had that discussion with the IMF, and the IMF have agreed to provide technical assistance for us to do that rationalization.
President John Mahama. Now, the Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, George Opariado, has revealed that the 2025 budget will come up with a number of initiatives geared towards supporting the youth and entrepreneurs. He made the revelation at the launch of the Youth and Women Business Policy Empowerment Program that is spearheaded and sponsored by the Ghana Chamber of Youth Entrepreneurs and Investment Climate, as well as Reform Facility.
The Ghana cedi continued to recover strongly against the US dollar. The local currency has been stable against the major trading currencies over the past weeks and in some.
And we apologize for that wrong sound earlier on. And let's get back to that story where the Minister of Youth and Development as well as Empowerment, George Opariado, has revealed that the 2025 budget will come up with a number of initiatives geared towards supporting the youth and entrepreneurs.
The budget is yet to be read. It's one of the things we'll be pushing for. As part of our manifesto, we promise that we will set up an entrepreneurship fund. And you know that we have a lot of funds in the system. We need to do an assessment of what those funds have become, whether they've turned out well or whether they've not turned out well. But it is a fund that His Excellency is committed to launching. We have few initiatives. In our manifesto, we made a 120-day pledge. The Coders program will definitely take place this year, so it will definitely find space. The Jumeirah project will definitely find space in the budget, and the National Apprenticeship program. These are bold programs and bold initiatives that we promise that in 120 days it will be launched and it will take off. So certainly these programs will find space in the budget.
The Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, George Opari Addo. Now, the significant reduction in the cedi's rate of depreciation against the dollar has started impacting on some sectors of the economy. The latest are prices of petroleum products, which has been spared of an increase for this pricing window. There is more in this report.
The Ghana cedi continued to recover strongly against the US dollar. The local currency has been stable against the major trading currencies over the past weeks, and in some cases, it's actually appreciated against the US dollar. Prices of petroleum products would have been kept unchanged or go up marginally from the middle of this month. But due to the cedi's performance and declining prices of crude oil over the past 2 weeks on the international market, prices at the pumps in Ghana should be going down. Some transport operators were initially pushing for an increase in fares due to how the local currency's performance impacted on fuel prices earlier this year. But for some individuals, if the current performance of the cedi sustained, as well as some favorable development in the Middle East, then we could be assured of petroleum products going down further in the coming month.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, the Chartered Institute of Insurance Ghana has stressed the need for state-owned enterprises to add insurance professionals to its board of directors. The president of the institute, Solomon Latte, said this is key in ensuring proper risk management in the running of these institutions. He spoke to Chairperson at the Ghana Insurance Institute of Ghana Investiture and President Cocktail event.
If you come to the CIG, we are talking about professionals working in every aspect of insurance, the life sector, the non-life, health, pensions, and all those sectors. So it's a very huge family if you talk about CIG, and we only expect nothing but the best. Going forward, we intend to produce more professionals and also bring them to the fore. I have said, and I'll repeat here, that there should never be an economic dialogue, for instance, without an insurance professional in that. In fact, most of the major boards in the country must have insurance professionals. The idea is to bring proper risk management, insurance-based risk management solutions to our industries, to the economy, to our everyday lives.
Solomon Latte is the president of the Chartered Insurance Institute of Ghana. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And if you are a shareholder of EcoBank Transnational Incorporated, today you earned 3 pesos to the value of each share that you owned, and it's now worth 50 pesos. If in terms of returns, since the beginning of this year, it's gone up by more than 9%. Now, this return is far better than other investment instruments on the market. So it looks like the Ghana Stock Exchange or the exchange market continues to offer some good returns to investors who had invested since the beginning of this year. And that's all for business on News Night. Back to you. MFR wants to go to.
Let's ask the question.
She wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking him today that what happened. You said because it was on a weekend.
So we went to in Suriname.
Okay,
you have to explain to them.
So those who were able to make it in Suriname had fun.
Stuff. Somebody was bringing me lunch. I said no, I don't want to.
I am saying it was on a weekend, so you know, okay. Just like how President John Mahama said that the area boys and girls also had to have their own.
Oh, okay. Ms. Bao, let's go. Why?
So now we have them. Area boys.
No wahala. Anyway, for the Ghana Police Service have arrested the General Manager of Elimina Sharks, Kelvin Abuaje. This is in connection with an attack on a referee during a Division 1 football match between Elimina Sharks and Swedro All Blacks in Zone 3. Now, the incident occurred on Sunday at the Hindu Stadium in Elmina following the conclusion of the game. According to the police, Kelvin Abuaje, along with other individuals, physically assaulted the referee and some supporters after the match. The suspect is currently in police custody assisting with investigations. And the police say that efforts are also ongoing to identify and arrest the remaining culprits involved in the attack. Now, in a related development, the spokesperson of Kumasi Ashanti Kotoko lawyer Samuel Safo Duku says there's been some update as far as attempt to arrest the person responsible for the death of Francis Nanapole Frimpong. Now, according to him, in the court proceedings today, it was revealed that one Brimer has been identified as the killer. He's currently on the run, and the police are making efforts to arrest him. Well, meanwhile, the former Black Stars defender Sam Johnson has waded into all of this violence in the sport, emphasizing that if left unchecked, it could lead to the total collapse of the game in the country.
How can you go to the stadium with something, a sharp object to just kill? Now you kill him, and then what? Are you okay? Like, you are satisfied now that I've killed him, and then what?
I remember Sanidana saying that if we don't take our time, our domestic leagues will die.
Then that is where we are going. That is where we are going. And if you don't look, I was telling, I don't know who I was talking to. I'm like, look, the punishment is not enough.
Well, that's Sam Johnson speaking to my colleague Muftar Nabila in Prime Take, which is due to be aired this week. You can look forward to that. And for that's all we have for you in sports.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bao. We'll catch you on Joy News Prime at 7 p.m. on the Joy News channel. Now, they come with hope, eager to learn, but the walls around them are falling apart, just like the system meant to shape their future. In many schools across the 5 regions of the North, pupils sit on blocks or even the bare ground to acquire knowledge. In some schools, just 2 teachers shoulder the burden of educating pupils from kindergarten to basic 6. Joy News' latest series, Crumbling Start, produced by Emmanuel Juveno, uncovers the disturbing reality of basic education in northern Ghana. Here are excerpts.
For pupils of Sambonjida DA Basic School, having a teacher is a privilege.
This man here.
2 trained teachers shoulder the responsibility of educating pupils from kindergarten to basic 6. Volunteers like Thomas, a senior high school graduate, step in to assist, but the results are troubling.
So I'm coming here to teaching ABCD, to describe yourself, to the 1, 2, 3, 2. So that's why that I'm coming to be teaching for my children. A, B, C, D.
Thomas tries his best, but his grasp of the English language and teaching methodology raises concerns. The school has only 3 classrooms, forcing 2 different classes to share a single space. Teachers struggle to maintain focus and discipline while handling multiple levels at once.
The teachers too, we are a lot of teachers. The whole school from KG1 to P6, we are only 2 teachers. Imagine, if you compare with me, the KG2 to P6, 2 teachers taking from KG2 to P6 is a burden.
For pupils in kindergarten, their classroom is nothing more than a fenced area with blocks intended for construction now serving as furniture. These blocks were donated 5 years ago during the height of campaigning, but they were never used as promised.
The blocks, that was the MP, the current MP, the campaign time, the last election campaign time, that he came and molded the blocks there, that he wanted to build a classroom for the community or for the school. Then, after winning, he didn't come back again. So it's the MP who molded the blocks down and it's still lying down.
That's Crumbling Start, and that full feature will air on the JoyNews channel. Tomorrow is an education series produced by Emmanuel Givenui, premieres tomorrow, Tuesday, 18 February, on the JoyNews channel. Also here on Joy 99.7 FM. I believe will start on the Super Morning Show. Now, over 1,000 suggestions have already poured in as the Education Reform Committee gears up for the much anticipated sector review. Well, tomorrow in the Volta Regional Capital, key stakeholders, experts, and passionate voices will shape the future of learning in Ghana. Already, we know that funding of the free senior high school, especially the cost of boarding students, has come up largely, and it came up also during Joy Prime's National Dialogue series on the Joy News channel, also on Joy Prime. But ahead of tomorrow's conversation, Chairman of the Reform Committee, Professor George K.T. Odro, says over 1,000 submissions have been received. He's also looking forward to engaging about 300 attendees to the launch of the committee's work in Ho tomorrow.
Our plan is to get stakeholders discuss this particular theme within 5 pillars, the context of 5 pillars. And these pillars were derived from the NDC manifesto and then our strategic plan 2018 to 2030. So the 5 pillars are infrastructure, education financing, quality education provision, regulatory systems, accountability and governance, and then the last one is research evidence for decision making. We have invited a number of stakeholders across board, including parents, students, and as I've said, a number of them. And we are expecting that tomorrow at the launch, we are expecting we will get about 300 people at the launch. So after the launch, we have divided the country into 3. We have the northern zone, the middle zone, and the southern zone. So after the launch, the zonal deliberations will start. And one of the things that we put in view of the short period we had to work was also to go online. So a page has been created on the Ministry of Education website for citizens and those in the diaspora to submit comments, proposals, and any other information.
That's Professor George K.T. Odro. There is chairman of the National Education Reform Committee, and we're all over that review meeting tomorrow in the Volta Regional Capital Hall. Now, Minister of Education and member of Parliament for Tamale South, Haruna Idris, has reaffirmed the government's commitment to transforming public basic schools into modern facilities. Well, there's something we'll be looking at. A recent report by 10 civil society organizations, including Star Ghana, Campaign for Female Education, and ActionAid, revealed that over 5,400 schools in the country still operate under trees, makeshift sheds, and deteriorating structures. While speaking at the launch of the Okaikwe South Public Schools Renovation and Upgrade Project, Haruna Idris says the current state of public schools is an indictment on the government.
Evidence abounds that there is a strong relationship between good learning environment and good learning outcomes. So he got it very right. Yes. The second would have been an indictment on the state and government.
That's the Education Minister, Haruna Idris. Now, the immediate past registrar of the Scholarship Secretariat has proposed ways government can raise funds to cater for Ghanaian students abroad. The students who have been speaking to JoyNews say some of their colleagues are facing extreme financial hardships due to prolonged delays in tuition and stipend payments, forcing them to engage in illegal activities and even go to the extent of selling their sperm to make ends meet. You can hear from some of them.
Last week, 8 of our students, that's my mates, are using one person's documents to work because the 20 hours given us to work, we are not due. We are not getting jobs to do with that 20 hours that is given us. And fortunately or unfortunately for them, it's like those that they are working with have rectified that there are different people coming in one name. So they reported the incident to the higher authorities.
2 students from University of Nottingham University, they actually had an interview with them somewhere last year. And they mentioned, in fact, they have receipts. One of them forwarded some of the receipts to me. That, look, this is what people are doing.
Why will a student
on a scholarship program resort to selling their sperm?
Because you can't survive. I mean, you need to eat. You need to pay your bills.
You realize that a number of events have either been suspended, cancelled, or on the verge of being disrupted. And when that happens, it means that the liabilities are transferred directly from the GSS to the students. And so you have a number of colleagues being locked out of university systems.
Some students abroad there speaking on the law with Samson Ladi and Yenenes on Sundays at 2 p.m. on the JoyNews channel. Well, the immediate past registrar of the Scholarship Secretariat, Dr. Kingsley Ajiman, believes some taxes the current government wants to scrap can be used for such payments.
What I handed over is about 600 million Ghana cedis at the time I was leaving. If the dollar rate is about 15, then you can conveniently say that it's about $45 million, way less than what we came to inherit. The nature of the liability of the scholarship funding is a revolving one. You always have students or scholars whose term of study will not be coterminous with that of the fiscal year. So whereas the academic year usually starts in September, you have the fiscal year starting in January. So definitely you always have a gap. And so I appeal to the president that globalization is the way to go. He should have mercy on these students abroad. Maybe some of them are even his party close relatives of his. So I'm appealing to him that he should not abandon these students. You need to legislate. And as part of the legislation, we need to have a statutory source of funding. So for instance, this government has the greatest opportunity to institute that. The COVID, which is an earmark tax, can be rationalized into scholarships. The betting tax, which they intend to scrap, percentage of it can come to fund scholarships.
That's Dr. Kingsley Ajiman, is the immediate past registrar of the Scholarship Secretariat, was one MP, and he's been speaking to us on this particular issue. And that's how we wrap up today's edition of News Time. Before then, though, some of your messages. Musa Batwa in Aswasi says, so far so very good, considering the lay-down procedures being executed by President Mahama. It is clear that he's walking the talk. And this one says, it is heart gladdening that the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is working relentlessly to ensure that cocoa farmers are giving deserving prices for their produce. And Nana Spintex Road says the NPP politicians must be careful of their utterances. And okay, and then also Ane Kwema Boatin says Ghana has not benefited from this incompetent special prosecutor. He say all he knows is to organize press conferences and be speaking. Okay, big grammar. That's some of your messages that you sent in via WhatsApp, and that's it for News Nights. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I am MFA Pau. Have a good evening.